Good afternoon on what is a mild, bright and sunny day. It is Monday the 4th of March and I'm in the reading up with a nice hot cup of tea. And some parcels to unbox. So, let's have a look in this one. So, where has he sealed this? I mean, got quite a rattle. So it's definitely going to be a board game. Let's get the knife on this, cut through adhesive tape, parcel tape. There we go. I'm just looking for where he had sealed it. And I can't see what it is yet. There we go. So, yeah, quite nicely sealed actually. Done a good job there. So, plenty of good packing material. Almost there, it's taken a while. And what I have got is this. The classic Dungeons and Dragons, the epic adventures with wizards, dragons and magic. And this is a starter set, I think, for the basic Dungeons and Dragons. Because this looks very much like sort of like the cover to the Rules Encyclopedia, which came out in the 90s. So the classic Dungeons and Dragons game. The dragon lunges. Your flashing blade slices through the air. Searing flames burst over your shield. A lightning bolt crackles from the wizard's fingertips, then bounces harmlessly off the ancient beast's scarred and scaly hide. Will you stay and battle this deadly monster, or leave it behind with its hoard of stolen treasure? The Dungeons and Dragons game lets you and your friends create and play mighty warriors, shrewd wizards, cunning elves, and nimble thieves. No mention of clerics there. Easier than ever to learn. A 128-page Rules and Adventures book takes you adventuring while you learn the game. 6 moulded plastic character figures, 24 stand-up counters featuring the awesome monsters you face. A 6-panel Dungeon Master screen puts important rules at your fingertips. A large, full-colour dungeon poster map and a complete set of adventure dice. Epic adventures with wizards, dragons and magic await you. Do you feel brave? So this would have cost you $20 in, let's have a look, 1994. And or 28 Canadian dollars, or £14.99. So there we go. And it's even, you can see how old this is. Basically, you've still got the address of TSR UK on the back there. But let's have a look inside, see what it is actually consists of. So we're going to show this as best I can. What I'm actually going to do, be slightly clever here, because I don't want to lose anything. So you've got, there we go. That's about as best as I'm going, because if I tip it any further, it's going to cascade all over the floor. And then you're going to watch me picking things up, and you know that's boring. So, got a pencil. I don't think that was in the original. Some great handful of 6-sided dice. Not sure whether they're the original, but good solid 8-sided, 20-sided dice, so standard kind of dice. You've got a pair of, well, 2d10s. The thing is with that, it's kind of like one of them isn't the percentile dice. The 12-sided die and a 4-sided die. There we go. And then these are the little miniatures. There we go, little plastic model figures. There's a bit of detail on them, not a huge amount, but you know. They kind of feel like a bit modelled on the sort of classic figures you get in Dungeons and Dragons. And you've got like a mighty knight with his great big honking mace there. Oh, 6-sided die. More miniatures. So you've got that's going to be a dwarf with an axe. What's I've got in here? Clerical wizard, something like that. Oh, that's the dwarf. Definitely the dwarf. So I don't know what the other one was. Right, then you've got these kind of stand up. So this here is, there's Axel and a hobgoblin, and you basically just something like that. There we go. See the front, and then you've got the silhouette on the back. So just look at these. There's an orc and a guard. So you've got a bunch of these. Got another guard, a gnoll. Any more of these? There's a few more of these, but they're not all of them are attached or detached. Sorry, I should say. So I'm just, because this is all a bit jumbled in, you see. So here we go. There's Jurge. I don't know what Jurge is. Might be a hobgoblin, but that's a goblin. So you've got these little standees that you can use, and then you've got the rest of them. So you've got some classic monsters there. I'm going to turn those up because that's what they should actually look like. Then we come to, this is, you've got the Dungeon Master's screen. So this is actually taken off the front of the, I would presume is the previous big box set, of which I'm after a copy myself actually. But inside you've got the player character tables, the combat tables, and the order of play. So that's reasonably sturdy, not fantastically sturdy by modern standards. You have the poster map. This is the poster map of the dungeon. I hope you can see that all effectively. There we go. So this dungeon is, let's have a look. It's got about 30, 35 locations. This is Zanza's dungeon. So you get a big dungeon map in which to explore, you know, put down on the table. No theatre of mind here. Underneath that, you have the Rules and Adventure book. There we go. And this is basically developed and edited by Doug Stewart, based upon the work done by Troy Denning and Timothy B. Brown. Jeff Easley cover there. And then you've got the standard explanation of what a role-playing game is, got the table of contents, how to use this book, you know, and we've got a bit quick example of play there. You know, basically you're talking about what you do, the role of the dungeon master, and a discussion of Zanza's dungeon. And things like, how do I use these funny dice? And it's talking about the character Axel there. You know, it's taking you through the stages of play, introducing you to the concepts, and then we move on to what is a Dungeons and Dragons game character? What's the difference between a player and a character? And so on. Essentially, it is doing that learn as you play thing, discussing it, so essentially what you've got is here the basic saying, you know, what's the difference between a player and a character there? There's the tell, and you know, these sections here are the show. And then we're talking about prime requisites, stats. So this is the Rules Encyclopedia is based off the Beckme version of Dungeons and Dragons, came out in 1983. Basically, basic expert, companion master, and immortals, if I've got that right. Then we move on to character classes, and this is a distillation essentially of the Rules Encyclopedia into a starting set. And what amazes me at this point is the number of different starter sets that TSR put out between sort of like in the 90s, because this is one I'd never actually heard of or seen. So I was really glad to get hold of this one. I don't have the one previously, the big black box one. I'm hoping to get hold of a copy. But I've got the expansion to that as well. Then we've got the dwarf, and so on. You know, this is race as class here, halfling. Character checklist, table of equipment, explanation of things, basically the elements of the game. So you've got things like armor class and saving throws, elements of the character. Then we move on to spells and magical items, just giving you the overview. For the Dungeon Master, how to run a campaign. You know, handling monsters, non-player characters, what to do before getting to the dungeon, after leaving the dungeon, handing out experience points, and then we're into things to do inside the dungeon, inside that map that I showed you. So things like mapping, movement, special considerations, doors. I mean, all of this is going to be pretty much familiar to, you know, people watching this video, to me, a lot of gamers, but, you know, seeing it spelled out in very clear, simple fashion. We've got a game term checklist, what to do before a fight breaks out, and then we're straight into the fight, essentially with initiative. And, you know, morale checks, decisions with and around what to do, and again, illustrated with these rules section. So we're going to counter checklist, combat sequence. Yeah. And so on. Because I mean, I've also, like I said, the other thing I've also got, in addition to this one, I do have another surprising one was the introduction to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I'd never seen that. So yeah, there are quite a lot of introductory box sets that TSR put out. So you know, missile combat, range and melee combat, handling damage, the different steps going through, and then we come to the end. I think there's another page. Yes, there's another page there. And then we have things basically dealing with healing wounds, what happens if a PC gets killed during battle, cleaning up the details, but more importantly, THAC0. THAC0 is optional, or I should say THAC0. So this does kind of feel like a very cleaned up version of BECMI. BECMI is easy to use, but it's not easy to use off the page. Rolling a character is kind of difficult, as far as I recall, going back to it. Whereas if I look at something like Old School Essentials, which is a version of the Moldvay version, that's really cleaned up and accessible. I think that's one of the advantages of the OSR, is actually going back into the text and looking at it going, how can I make that easier to access? But anyway, Escape from Zanzar's Dungeon Part 1, here we're into the adventure, using that map. So this is the basic, you know, you've assembled your players and the characters that are sat at the table, and you run them through, you know, this short little encounter. Okay, and then after the adventure, and then oddly, so you basically got, what you've really got here is essentially, here are all the rules, here's how it works, here's a short encounter, and then we're on to spells. So we're looking at the cleric spells there, as you would expect, magic user spells, just a very short table of them. You know, selection of basically first, second, and third level spells, and then we're on to Part 2, Escape from Zanzar's Dungeon. And this is dealing essentially with more detailed rules for running a dungeon. And then we discuss things like, where are we? Happens after the adventure, essentially all that section of the adventure, and then we're on to monsters and different levels, and essentially number of monsters, saving throws, breaking down the monsters, essentially explaining how the descriptions work. And then we start off with Basilisk, bat, bear, beetle, bugbear, black pudding. Sadly, none of these are illustrated. It's a bit disappointing. We've got a section there of great cats. So you've got a lengthy section of monsters, got doppelgangers, displacer beasts, classic Dungeons and Dragons monsters, along with different types of dragon. Different types of giant. Got an illustration there. That's of. It doesn't actually say what it is. It doesn't. Just a random illustration. And then things like grey ooze, green slime, goblins. So you actually quite a really wide range of monsters in here. You've got the infamous owlbear. And nasty little sturges. Scourge of low-level parties. And we will come all the way down to vampire. And that's quite a monster, because essentially that's quite a tough character, basic monster in there, because that's hit dice at between 7 and 9th hit dice. So yeah, basically white, wraith, wyvern, zombie, all presented. And then we're into Escape from Zanzar's Dungeon, Part 3. And really, this is very much a sort of like a programmed adventure. You know, you are starting off with location 1 and working your way out, and having got further out of the dungeon, further close to the exit, you know, you've got the treasure section. So that's explaining the section on treasure, an explanation of items, and then we're back into Escape from Zanzar's Dungeon, Part 4. And these are actually really quite short session, things. So essentially, you know, that's Part 4, that, and that's 4 pages long. So that's really, you know, I mean, that's probably an hour to 2 hours of play, you know, overall. Then we have making a dungeon. This is advice on, you know, making a dungeon, and tips on being a dungeon master, and we have details of a special monster there at the end, a Camaro, a young dragon, and Stonefast as a location. Basically, it's somewhere that the dungeon master can fill in. Glossary, Wandering Master Table, Index, and really clean, simple character sheet, which you recognise from essentially basic Dungeons and Dragons. So yeah, and then beneath that we have customer response card, the sort of thing you would get in box sets, and it's fantastic that it's still in there. You know, we've got a couple of extra flyers in here. One for Dragon and Dungeon Magazine, and another for the RPGA. So, you know, get more out of your game. So, yeah, that's really quite a lot in there. Not necessarily a huge amount of play necessarily, given that it is just one dungeon. It was always the kind of case in the back of the day. You would always get one thing you can play, and then you're kind of left on your own. There's no connections. What do I look at next? But nevertheless, this will be an interesting thing to look at and review. I mean, because I do like a good starter set. I do like reviewing a good starter set, and perhaps the classic Dungeons and Dragons game might well be that. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you have, then please do click on the like button down below. And if you've got any more comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to get more unboxings in the Nook, it's actually where you will see me out here with a parcel from which I will unbox a game, role-playing game, in this case a starter set for basic Dungeons and Dragons, and talk about it to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook. I will be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.